Now, what in the Carnival is going on here? So, in breaking news, Carnival Cruise Line, aka the Fun Ships, have come out and announced that they are done. They are over the malarkey. They're done with the tomfoolery. They're done with the fights, the drugs, the kids running around during random hours when they shouldn't be. So much so that their Madam President, Christine Duffy, has made a video. Now, I'm going to show you the video in its entirety. That way, things aren't taken out of context and we get a real lay of the land. I'm also going to talk about my experience as I have recently, earlier this week, sailed on a Carnival ship, the Super Bowl cruise, where they implemented these rules. Well, somewhat. However, before we get into the video, I just want to let all of you know, shameless plug here, on my other channel, Jay the Nomad, today I will have a video of the only budget airline that will take you back and forth from France to the United States for as low as $300. I'm talking about French B. That'll be up today at 6 p.m. And then also next week, I will be going to the world's, or United States rather, first ever Super Mario World over in LA. I'll have a full review and vlogs on that as well, so make sure you subscribe to my other channel, Jay the Nomad.
Hi, I'm Christine Duffy, President of Carnival Cruise Line, with an important message for our guests. We've all seen the news coverage and social media posts of people behaving badly. It's happening in stores, restaurants, at sporting events, in schools, on airplanes, in theme parks, and yes, on cruise ships too. As the cruise line that sails more children and families than any other, I want to share with you the steps that we have taken to ensure that our guests have a safe, fun, and great vacation on board. My colleagues and I have been reviewing and updating security procedures, providing additional training to our crew, and enhancing guest communications to support the behaviors we expect on our ships. All of our ships have had more security personnel added, and we've introduced narcotic sniffing dogs at home ports to screen luggage on both a routine and random basis. So our guests shouldn't be surprised if they even see dogs come on board at both our home ports and destination outports to make random searches. Illegal drugs, including marijuana, on cruise ships and in cruise terminals is prohibited. And in case there's any confusion, let me remind guests that while marijuana and cannabis products may be legal in some states, we are required to follow federal law, irrespective of the law in the state where you may be boarding your ship. For guests using medical marijuana, you should consult with your physician about an alternative therapy during your cruise, as marijuana, as I said, is prohibited and will be confiscated. All guests must now acknowledge and commit to our code of conduct during the check-in process. So whether it's smoking, illegal substances, or disruptive behavior, there are consequences in place for those who do not comply, including fines, being confined to your cabin, or being removed from the ship and banned from sailing in the future. We've also implemented a youth curfew, and I've even called in the big guy, and by that I mean our Chief Fun Officer, Shaq O'Neill, to help us get the message out. In addition to the new signage that we've put in the terminals and on the ship, you'll see a series of video messages from Shaq on your stateroom TVs, reminding guests of our policies and our collective responsibility to have fun and be safe. Details on all safety and security policies are included in our ticket contract, which you should review prior to booking. We know how to show our guests a great cruise experience, and our ships are full of fun-loving guests. That's why we're so successful and why guests keep coming back. So please help us make sure your Carnival vacation is safe, fun, and memorable by respecting each other, our crew, and the ocean. Now, with all that said, let the fun begin.
So you know it's serious and potential changes are coming when the president of any entity, company, or organization decides to step in and talk about a topic at hand. I do have to give a shout out to Christine Duffy because she didn't sugarcoat too much. Now given there is some PR tactics that need to kind of be used in these types of scenarios, they can't be super blunt, but she did point out that there are problems on Carnival ships, and that is, well, without a doubt. She also talked about the fact that there are issues at theme parks and all other lays of the land. However, the reality is, when it comes to social media, things can't be ignored. We see more issues on Carnival ships than any other cruise line. Now, I have made a legitimate and I believe valid argument stating that when it comes to Carnival, they do have a lot of older ships that are still in operation. They do sail out of home ports in which you may find some people that are not travel savvy. It's probably their first time on a cruise. They can't act concordantly. And the reality is, there's just some people that you just can't take everywhere. We have all admitted to that. Now, I'm not talking about any specific type of demographic or anything of that nature, but we do have issues that need to be addressed. One of the things that Christine Duffy mentioned was added security. Now, I was just on board the Carnival Freedom for the Super Bowl cruise, and I did notice added security. However, I will admit that the security seemed a little timid and shy to even say anything, because one of the rules that was implemented on this ship was no speakers. Speakers still got in. There were beats being played and JBL speakers over on the Lido deck in the smoking area specifically, and the security didn't do anything about it. There were, I kid you not, like hundreds of people up there, and it seemed like security was kind of timid. There were some incidences. People were getting ready to fight over a chair. I heard through the grapevine there was like another fight that took place, but there were a couple issues here and there, and I would say the added security, by that I mean maybe 2 or 3 more security guards that you wouldn't normally see were actually present and accounted for. It kind of maybe sort of stopped some people from fighting, but there were still issues on board. When it came to the drugs, there was a drug sniffing dog in Port Canaveral. Now, I've only sailed out of Port Canaveral so many times, but that was the first time I've ever seen a drug sniffing dog in Port Canaveral, of all places, just outside of Orlando. However, people still found a way to bring drugs on board, as you could smell it throughout the ship, on my deck, which was the first deck, and then over by the smoking area as well. So I would assume that a lot of people, we had our first day of the cruise, or second day rather, over in Nassau, Bahamas. Maybe people just picked it up over there. There were no dogs accounted for in Nassau, Bahamas, and well, that's probably how people brought it on board. And even when security walked past again over there, it was just kind of like, whatever, it was ignored. Now, before I continue, for all of you Carnival lovers out there, you carnies, you very important, fun people, I just want to say I do love Carnival Cruise Line. I'm not trying to bash Carnival in any way. I'm just giving you guys some context from what I have recently seen from being on the ship just about 4 days ago. So I don't want you guys to think I'm trying to bash the company because I'm not Disney-fying everything. I'm just giving you my perspective, because when I'm on a cruise ship, I am slightly on vacation. Many of you have met me. I'm very cool and collected when I'm on the ship, but I am very observant. I spend a lot of my time looking around like a creepy person. Not really, but I'm a very observant because this is what I do. I know a lot of you like the detailed reviews and you like accurate information. I have statements, I have video footage. So if you guys come out and say that I'm just trying to be a Carnival hater, I don't know what to tell you. You can go kick rocks or you can walk the plank, but personally, I don't care. I'm just giving you guys my personal perspective, because we all know when this topic is at hand and you have the president of Carnival addressing this, the question is, because they could talk about this all day, are they going to actually enforce these rules and protocols that they are talking about kind of doubling down on? Now, Carnival also mentioned the curfew for kids, saying they had to be accompanied by adults after a certain hour if they are not at the teen club, the O2, or they are not at any of these places where they are accompanied by adults. They also said they're going to bring in Shaq to kind of reinforce these rules. Here's the deal, guys. Carnival, if you're listening, when it comes to Shaq, if I ever were to see Shaq try to tell me some rules, I'm not somebody that's starstruck. I would challenge this man to a game of basketball and I would lose horribly just so I can tell people that I lost to Shaq in a game of basketball. The only exception to that rule where I would actually listen to what Shaq is saying as far as enforcing rules is if he showed up in his Steel suit. Anybody remember Steel from, what is that, the 90s? You mean he's like a superhero? If he showed up in that suit, then maybe people will listen. But other than that, nobody really cares at the end of the day. It's going to take some real reinforcement by way of security and your protocols. That is the only way that all of this is going to work if you intend on cleaning your act. And I do understand why Carnival is doing it. However, they do have to be a little cautious about how they go about it. What I mean by this, and I am going to get real here for a minute, Carnival does indeed have a demographic, especially when you are talking about their older ships and the ships that are sailing out of areas that aren't as favorable or as popular. So we're not talking about your Miami, but when you're sailing out of places like New Orleans and Norfolk, Virginia, you are going to get a crowd that maybe is not used to traveling, and you can include race and everything a Look at however you want to slice it. Personally, I don't care. We all know the truth at the end of the day. I'm not talking specifically about the race, but I'm talking about everything as a whole. I always say Carnival is essentially your average Joe's cruise line. So you got people that can pick up a cruise for $100 or a couple $100 and sail on their merry way. Let's say, for example, Carnival decides to up the price, or they decide to really push hard on these new protocols and policies that they are now implementing. It could potentially alienate the passengers that have already been sailing specifically on these older ships. I do understand, however, why it's happening. It's only a matter of time, we all know, before the fantasy class with Carnival is done and away with, and they continue to make way for the new ships like the Mardi Gras Celebration and eventually the Jubilee set to debut later on this year. So when you take all of that into consideration, and as many cruise lines are starting to come into the fold, look at MSC, little by little, like a tidal wave coming into the United States market. They're making some adjustments, and there are other cruise lines that are starting to kind of come into the fold. Virgin, for example, they do have to change their ways if they are going to hopefully appeal to a larger variety of audience and make some more money. Because look at the route that Royal Caribbean is going. Let's face it, Royal Caribbean is killing it right now. They are everywhere. They just announced their second Icon class ship, and it's going to be absolutely insane. The promotions have been doing well. They also have Royal Caribbean blog, who has a whole system dedicated to Royal Caribbean. They are a well-oiled machine. And Carnival, on the other hand, when you look at their policies and you look at their promotions and their advertisement and marketing, let's be honest, it's not that great. They have all of the ships in the Celebration and Mardi Gras, but their PR team and marketing team is not that great. Let's call it what it is. So when you have the combination of that, there are going to have to, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, changes and adjustments in order for them to be profitable and continue doing what they do, which is making sure all of you fine folk have fun. In conclusion, no matter how you slice it, changes are and probably should to some degree be made. When it comes to the curfew, I still advocate for midnight, because as of right now, Carnival is saying all the children have to be in bed by 1 o'clock. Those are nightclub hours. Anything after 12 is, in my opinion, inexcusable. The kids should be in bed or at least in their room by midnight, my personal opinion. Maybe I sound like a grandpa, I don't know. I'm getting old now, I just turned 30. Now, also looking at the, I want to say, disorderly conduct, the fights in particular, Carnival has stated that you could potentially face a $500 fine, being banned from the cruise line, and potential jail time. You need to increase that. Maybe $5,000 to $10,000 in order to deter people more so from fighting. Also, when it comes to the drugs, I'll be honest with all of you. Personally, every now and then, I don't mind indulging in a little bit of extracurricular activity myself. It's not really my cup of tea. However, if my boys and we're hanging out, we're just having a good time living life, sure, why not? But when it comes to things on the ship, there are many that just simply don't like it. Me being on cruise ships, I don't like the hint of Mary Jane all over the place either, because again, it's not my cup of tea. But there are going to be changes that need to be had if people have medical issues. Carnival has stated that technically, to some degree, it may be allowed if you do have a medical excuse, and you can find alternatives for your cruise, because we know that they definitely are out there. But my point is, changes are going to be needed. They're going to be had whether people like them or not. But again, Carnival has to be delicate on how they proceed moving forward. So let's just see. Is Carnival actually going to make the effort, or is this all a bunch of talk? Is it all mumbo jumbo? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below. As usual, know that I love and appreciate every single one of you. I got another video to get to. Remember, Jay the Nomad, check it out. I got French B. Trust me, it's an airline you want to see if you're trying to go to Paris. Check out the Eiffel Tower, anything of that nature. As usual, hit that like button on your way out. Know that I love and appreciate every single one of you, and I'll see you later. Take it easy.